as we were preparing for this episode, we got an email from this wonderful woman named Beth Sherman, who's a comedy writer from Los Angeles. And we're just going to brag a little bit because Beth has won 7 Daytime Emmy Awards, and you've very likely seen her work on shows like Ellen, The Tonight Show, David Letterman, and more. She's absolutely hilarious. I got down a major rabbit hole watching the videos on her site. But the reason she's on is because she's recently fallen into a little sideline writing with adding comedy to all kinds of speeches, especially wedding speeches. She has ghostwritten nearly 100 best man speeches, groom speeches, father of the bride speeches, toast for the rehearsal dinner speeches for friends, family, acting as officiants, and even ghostwritten the vows themselves, you guys. So needless to say, I'm super excited to have Beth here. I have a feeling that everyone out there listening is going to have a great time listening to this episode. So Beth, thank you for being on the show.
Welcome.
Well, thanks for having me.
You're up in our cool factor. So we just gave you a brief introduction, but is there anything else that you feel like gushing or bragging about before we jump in?
Gushing or bragging? Boy, you haven't met a lot of comedy writers. Self-esteem is not one of our main attributes. Well, in addition to comedy writing, I was a stand-up comic for a lot of years. I did The Road. Writing has always been my first vocation, mostly because it pays my mortgage. But I love doing stand-up, and I've done a lot of stand-up over the years. So when I write speeches, I'm writing them as, I'm approaching them as a writer, but I'm also approaching them as something that needs to be delivered, and as someone that has been in front of a lot of audiences and in front of a lot of audiences that have had a lot to drink. And also, so I've been in front, I've watched a lot of stand-up. I've watched a lot of shows. And I've sat through a lot of shows. So I have opinions on what makes good stage presence. And even if you're not doing a giant kind of presentation, even if it's just a 2-3 minute toast, there's still things that you can do to make it better for you. And more importantly, the audience.
Yeah. Can I take a side track here and ask who your favorite comics are, and like who is inspiring to you to get into writing and just stand-up comedy itself?
I have a lot of favorites. I think Wanda Sykes just makes me laugh. I could listen to her read the phone book. George Carlin. I didn't listen to music growing up. I was up in my room listening to George Carlin albums. Bill Cosby. It was a different time. We didn't know, but I had all of his routines memorized. So that's just kind of how my brain got wired. Yeah. Now I love. There's a guy called Jim Jeffries who really makes me laugh. He's filthy, but he has a point. He's a master storyteller, and it's always worth the ride. If you hang in, if you watch 30 seconds, you'll think, I don't know. If you watch an hour, you're converted for life.
That's awesome.
There was a comedian like when I was really young named Paula Poundstone, and she was one of the first people I ever heard, and she has this bit about being on an airplane and the pilot like purposely flying the plane crooked so the people on the right can't see cool stuff. And I just like that was the first stuff that I ever got. I'm not a huge comedy nerd, but like there's certain things I like, and that was one of the first bits I ever heard that like made me really laugh and make me get into this and want to go to comedy shows. Like Helium Comedy Club is a big one in Philly that I would go to a bunch, and yeah, it was really cool. So I was just curious who you liked. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, can we start with a question that's just really going to show off my intelligence? What is ghostwriting exactly?
So ghostwriting essentially is me writing for you. So you take all the credit. It all comes out of your mouth. But I'm the little elf behind the scenes writing what you're going to say.
Makes sense. I love this idea so much. I think anytime you're presenting yourself in such a vulnerable way, I think you want to start on the best foot possible. And for a lot of us, speech writing might not be your strength, and there's nothing wrong with hiring someone to help you or asking for help. I mean, after all, you probably didn't sew your dress, or you didn't make your bouquet or bake your cake. There's no shame in this concept. So I really like that.
And maybe this is like getting too far down like the rabbit hole or too far in like the logistics questions, but like how do you like as you're writing something, how do you like make it make it their own, or like leave room for them to extemporate, or is it pretty much like you're just writing and they're reading off cards, or do you adjust your approach as you're writing for that person? Do you know what I mean? It's a lot of questions in there. Sorry.
Yeah, well, it's basically it's a full. So when I say ghostwriting, it's not just it's not a puppet show. It's a collaboration. So and of course I don't know this person. I don't know this person's friends. I don't know anything about them. So what I'll do is, and I can ghostwrite as much or as little as the client wants. So someone could come to me and say, here's something I wrote. I think it's a 7. I want it to be a 10. Or I think it's a 3 and I'm losing my mind because it can't be a 3. Can you help me? And they can send that to me, or they can say, I just don't know where to start, or I'm too busy, or can you give me a starting point? So what I'll typically do is I will first I'll find out just the basic situation. Okay, you are the bridesmaid, you're the maid of honor, your best friend is getting married, and you want to blow the best man speech out of the water. So, okay. So tell me about, how did you meet the bride, your best friend? How did you meet the bride? How did she meet the groom? Tell me about the wedding. Is it big, small, religious, not religious? Is there some way they're making it their own? Oh, really? Everyone's going to be dressed like it's Lord of the Rings and it's on New Year's Eve. Okay. Good piece of information. All those sorts of things. And then from those answers, because, tell me the best quality about your friend. Tell me, how does that quality get your friend in trouble? Oh, she's so trusting. She's the most honest, trusting person I've ever met. How does that get her in trouble? Well, there was that time when those guys offered us a ride and they thought, and suddenly we're in a police chase and, get questions that draw out anecdotes that are fun to tell. And so you can the client will either email me the answers or we can jump on a call. And then once I have enough information, I can start putting together a rough draft, because for most of these speeches, the structure of it is formulaic. What's in it has to be customized. What's in it has to be really special. But
I can even just jump in here. How long does the process take? Like, at what point should a person be reaching out to you if a wedding is coming up on the horizon?
Well, the sooner the better, just as far as scheduling. I've turned things around overnight for people who it will cost you more if you procrastinate, but I'm not going to complain about that. But people, I think people start getting nervous a few weeks beforehand. It starts getting real to them. Sometimes they don't decide they need help until they actually sit down to write it. And then they decide, maybe someone looking over my shoulder, someone helping me out would be great.
So Beth, I guess the next question I have is, you kind of went through like some of your logistics and how you build some of these speeches and toasts and what your process is. So I guess just in a more simple question, what makes a good toast in your eyes?
So there's kind of two components. There's the writing of it and then the delivering of it. So writing it, what makes a good toast is a little bit of humor. Okay. You don't have to try to be funny. Life is funny. Truth is funny. You don't try too hard. And if it's not your thing, just be sincere. Be honest. If you hate speaking in public and you are dreading this, but these are the only people on the planet that you would ever stand in front of people and speak for, say it. Say that, everyone's there to have a good time. They're on your side. You don't need to suffer in silence. And that says a lot about, it's honest, and it says a lot about your relationship to the couple or to your friend. Be nice. Sometimes it's harder than other times. Could be a sibling you don't get along with, or if you might hate the person your friend is marrying. But, it's a happy day. Mm-hmm. If they're marrying the wrong person and it's going to crash and burn, let them have this one day. Make this happy.
Well, at that point, you're at the wedding. I mean, anything you're going to say at the toast, they're already married. It's not going to change anything now. It's just going to make the whole situation very uncomfortable.
Exactly. Yeah. And there has to be something nice that you can say. I've never seen Susan this happy. You don't have to finish the sentence, with the rest of the sentences, but she's out of her mind. Yeah. And when you're sitting to write the toast, don't expect, it's not going to fall out of you fully formed. So be patient with yourself. Yeah. Sit down and brainstorm all the things you might want to include, all the things you might want to say, the stories you have, the funny things that person has said, or the nicknames. And if you don't want the pressure of sitting down at your computer, start a note on your phone. And just every time you think of something, add it to the note so that when you do sit down, you have a little list, you have a starting point. Think of it as a jigsaw puzzle. So just get all those pieces into the box and then sort of then once you have enough, you can dump that box out, and then like a jigsaw puzzle, start with the easy part first. Start with the edges, start with introduce yourself. I'm Beth. I've known Oprah since we met at Costco. I was buying snow tires. She was trying to lift a bag of carrots the size of a Mini Cooper. Start with the beginning, then put down the ending. Please join me in a toast to the bride and groom, to Oprah and Stedman. Those are your bookends. Just gradually try to fill in the middle, so you don't get overwhelmed.
As you're going through this, kind of talking about like these this flow to it. I mean, I've definitely seen speeches, both maids of honor and best man, that like it's like they're roasting the groom for like 10 minutes, and then all of a sudden it's like, but seriously, how awesome is the bride, how awesome is the groom, I love this guy, I've known him for forever. And it's like, wait a second, there's this huge disconnect. And I think just a couple of the things that you said to let things flow and just to be nice, right? Like that. And I don't know, I feel like that's just a good advice for our couples who are listening. That just like some of these little things that's almost common sense, but not everybody is thinking of it that way. They just think of it as like, oh, I need to be nice at this last part, and I need to roast the groom, for the first 10 minutes, Oh
yeah, and it has to be it has to be appropriate for all ages. Your Aunt Joan is sitting there. Their Aunt Joan is sitting there, more importantly. Grandma's there and great Aunt Ella is sitting there. So you don't have to, we know you were in a fraternity together. We get it. you don't have the time he peed himself in when he tried to have sex with a prostitute in Amsterdam. You don't have to go into it. You can say, we went to Amsterdam. I don't remember all of it, but I think we had fun. You can allude to stuff. But yes, don't, you want people to think that you like this person. And also don't forget the other half of the couple. A lot of guys in the best man speeches will sort of talk all about their friend and then sort of say, and then he found Betsy. So here's to them. No, like what?
Right.
Betsy, he didn't pick her up off a shelf and put her in his cart. Like he they met. I would imagine him meeting her changed your relationship a little bit. There's a little bit of context. So just try to think through all of that.
I know I heard something once along the way, and anytime I hear the template of it repeated, it always makes me smile. And I don't know the full outline of it, but it's basically just to start off by introducing yourself and going through that, but showing gratitude and giving compliments. It's just such a nice, positive way. And if you give yourself that bit of outline that like, okay, how can I just show gratitude? Thank you. If you're the couple, thank you all for being here and for, holy crap, all of the travel you did. And I know how hard it is to find, an outfit this time of year for this type of event, whatever it is. Just showing that bit of gratitude to those around you, or to, if you are the maid of honor or best man, to that person for choosing you to be in that position. And then giving that compliment, giving love, remembering that there's two people there, not just the person that you're closest to, but giving that. And even if you're a couple, because now it's very common for couples to give toast or speeches, as I like to say, because they're not necessarily toasting themselves. But it's a great way to compliment your partner from a really sincere standpoint and let them know just how flipping excited you are to be married to them. You know, it's a beautiful, wonderful thing. And it's such a great way to sort of publicly lift them up, right? I get that roasting and you know, sort of really you know, digging in on their not the so best qualities is potentially funny. It's not my favorite at a wedding when you're there to celebrate this wonderful situation.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree. Sorry, I stepped on you there, but I agree with you 100%. Being funny does not mean being mean. Being funny, first of all, you can take you can, it should, if you're going to make fun of anyone, it should be at your own expense. You know, be a good citizen, be a good guest. Make sure you thank the people that are your hosts. It's not hard to find out who's paying for the wedding, and even just say, you know, thank all the families. Thank them. Make sure that you thank everyone. I'm sure everyone looks great. Mention it. You look, you know, the bride and her party look great. The groom probably looks better than he's looked in a while, and as does his party. So yeah, absolutely. It's a positive thing. Being funny does not mean being negative.
Agreed. Okay. So on that note, let's take a little bit of a break, Dan. And when we come back, I've got some exciting questions for you guys and maybe some good tips. And I'm excited. We'll go from there. Sound good?
Woo-hoo.
Today's episode is sponsored by Warby Parker.
Warby Parker makes buying glasses online easy and risk-free with glasses starting at just $95. Their home try-on program allows you to order 5 pairs of glasses, shipped straight to your home so you can try them out for like 5 days. After 5 days are up, you can easily send them back using the prepaid returning shipping label with no obligation to purchase. You did this, right, Danielle?
I did. So when I did my trial, I actually wore them around for most of the day. I got a feel for their comfort and how they looked, and I was able to snag the opinions of the people that I saw throughout the day, including my friends on social media. And funny enough, most of the people picked the glasses that were probably the least comfortable to wear on my face because I have a big head. So I was able to get a feel for them. Otherwise, I would have, if I just went off of looks alone, I would be absolutely regretting my decision today. So yeah, I was happy I got to, you know, when you have them for the 5 days, you get to feel them out. So that was cool.
Yeah. I remember you posting the pictures and people voting on them and stuff. That was really funny.
Yeah.
So when you place an order for glasses that you like with your prescription, Warby Parker gets started on them right away. So you have them crazy fast, like in a week and a half, if not sooner.
Yeah. And since we know that as a listener of this podcast, you have a pretty big heart. Aww. For every pair of glasses sold, Warby Parker distributes a pair of glasses to someone in need, which is really awesome, you guys. So to order your free home try-ons today, head to warbyparkertrial.com/ring.
Seriously, Warby Parker makes your experience completely risk and stress-free with free shipping all around. Visit warbyparkertrial.com/ring to get started.
Now back to the show. Okay, so we're back. We are talking with Beth Sherman, who is giving us all kinds of great tips on toast. And every time I say toast, that, I just think avocado. So, Dan, I want to actually ask you this question. What is the best toast you've ever seen, or maybe the most memorable toast you've ever seen?
The most memorable toast I've ever seen was one a couple years ago, and I've seen lots of really nice toasts, but I'm gonna go towards this one because it's what not to do, and that is one. There's definitely like a nice time frame that I think that is good for people to speak, and that's maybe that 2 to 3 minute mark, or unless you're like a great orator, maybe 5 minutes, and you can keep people interested the whole time. This particular speech was like 30 minutes long, no lie, and he brought it was a best man speech, and he brought every possible topic you could possibly imagine into this. It was right around the time that the presidential election was going on, so he brought like that into it. He brought some old some some advice that like an old professor that they both had, and he tied everything to that, and it was just ongoing and rambling and had no compliments to the couple. And it was not good. And by the end of it, everybody in the room was feeling awkward and they started talking. And then the couple, just like their eyes were getting bigger and everybody was just like, all right, cut it off, dude, cut it off. And so I would say keep it complimentary. I'm just going to echo everything that Beth is saying and say keep it complimentary and keep it within a nice, neat little time frame, 2 to 3 minutes, and maybe practice beforehand. Don't do it on like when it's game time, when it's test taking time.
So yeah, don't make it a hostage situation.
Yeah, terrible.
It's not good.
Oh, goodness. Anyway. Whew.
Yeah. So Dan, I want to share one of my favorite toasts that has just stuck out in my memory over the past few years was actually from a wedding that you and I did together a few years back. But long story short, to sort of set it up, the couple chose to have a Russian Orthodox ceremony, and if you're familiar with that, and especially in this case, throughout the entire ceremony, it's the job of the best man to hold this crown, if you will, above the couple's head. And he was specifically holding it over the groom's head. And when I say he had to have his hand up in the air holding this crown over the groom's head for probably, Dan, would you say about 30, 45 minutes or so?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
The entire time with no break. None whatsoever. He had to hold this crown over his, I think it was his best friend's head, and God love him, my heart was breaking for him because you could just see the sweat and the your arm had to be burning. Well, cut to the reception, and it was time for that best man to give his toast to the happy newlyweds. So he stands up to do his toast, and he steps over to the side and asks the groom to please join him where he was standing. And he handed that groom a maybe 5 or 10 pound weight.
Yeah, it's 5 pound weight.
Yeah, so he handed him a 5 pound like free weight dumbbell type thing, and he said, for the entire duration of my toast, you will now get to hold this weight over my head. So for the entire toast, the groom had to stand there holding the weight over the best man's head. And it was just this super funny, very lovely throwback to the ceremony in a serious situation, just made really light and funny. And I honestly don't remember too much specifically of the toast itself, but just that little thing. Of course, you're great at that stuff, Dan, but just that little funny thing, like he obviously prepared, he brought the weight. It was just that little bit of foresight that I just thought was just so entertaining, and it just put a smile on everybody's faces. For me, that's one that will always stick out to me. So
yeah, it was just that little like something, but then he didn't keep like badgering him or anything. It was an extremely compassionate, I think it was his older brother if I remember correctly. It was extremely compassionate and caring and sweet speech, wishing well wishes and all that kind of stuff to the couple, and all while Ryan was holding his weight over his brot's head. But it was really fun. It was all in jest.
Yeah, he definitely made a few references about how he could just keep on going, just to extend it a little bit longer. But it was lovely in my opinion. And speaking of lovely, another thing I want to talk about is the concept of couples giving thank you speeches. Obviously, we're talking about the more traditional best man toast or things like that, but
maid of honor, yeah.
Yeah, I love when a couple stands up and gives their thanks and shows their gratitude and just sends their love right back to the people that are there supporting them and celebrating them. Dan, I know you really enjoyed giving a toast at your wedding, right?
I did. For me, it all came back to just being like a gracious host, right? And we're coming to you in a second, Beth, because I have a question about this too. But I think it just became like wanting to be a gracious host and thinking about all the people who had gathered there, and many of them traveling across the country and driving, several hours or whatever, and just standing up there and just expressing, one, like how excited I was for everybody to be under one roof for this like very happy reason. Two, for just to love on both of our parents for being supportive and gracious with their finances and that kind of thing. And then lastly, to gush on my new bride and just toast to her. And it was just really exciting. And I feel like not too many couples actually stand up and even just say, hey, thank you so much, everybody, for coming. We love you. We're super excited, whatever. And that was just something that I hadn't seen. I just felt very compelled to do it. So Beth, did you give a toast to your wife at your wedding?
Yes, I did make a speech at our wedding. We had a tiny little wedding. It was about 20 people, and it was extremely last minute. So I didn't. There was so much to plan and prepare for, like the wedding itself, that I didn't even think about what I was going to say there. But I did say a few words, and then handed the. And I was so unprepared. It was completely. This was before I started the sideline. This was a few years ago. And it was a lot of comics in the audience. The guests were a lot of comics, so it was a tough room. But no, I did say a few words, and it was really nice because you don't often have the chance.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, there are more than a few occasions in your life where you get a lot of the people that you love and around you. But it's one of those occasions where it's people from. How often do you get the chance to have the people from college and your relatives and people that you work with? It's such a random group of people. It's all the people that you care about in your life all together for one purpose, and that purpose is you. And honestly, the only other time off the top of my head that I can think of that would happen would be you'll probably be dead.
Yes.
It's a terrible thought, but you get this chance to, and you don't get to say anything at that event. So they all talk about you.
Traditionally, that's true.
Traditionally, yes, unless you've really thought ahead and there's some sort of video presentation. You get the chance to sincerely thank people who really have done that. And at my wedding, I got up, I said a few words, and my wife is really outgoing on an individual basis, but really doesn't like public speaking. And she said, absolutely not, absolutely not. I don't want to speak. I don't want to say anything in that case. In fact, for years before, she had said, if we're going to get married, I don't even want to stand up in front of all those people. You'll have to have some sort of cardboard cutout of me. And then I'll just quietly be in the back. Like, I want to be there, but I don't want everyone looking at me at once. And she's not shy in person, but then when I stood up to speak at the dinner, she took the mic from me.
Wow.
She would, because of the moment, she felt all of those same things. She wanted to thank people. She wanted to acknowledge. We had people she's English, so we had people in from England, and her mom, and just this incredible group of people. So even if you don't think you want to say something, or if you think you'll be overwhelmed by the moment, at least think of one or two things. Even if you're going to let your spouse drive that, at least think of a couple things that you'd like to say if the mood strikes. At least stand up there and smile, but at least think of a couple things, because you probably, once you're in that moment, you're just going to be getting so much love from your guests, and you will feel it, and you're literally just standing in the middle of all of this love. You probably will want to say something.
Yeah.
So do you have...
I'm sorry. Well, I was also going to say that I think that the bride and the groom giving speeches here is kind of new, but what I've learned over the course of doing these speeches is apparently the groom's speech is very traditional in the UK and in Australia. Ooh. So I've now written a whole bunch of them. And I think it's beginning to catch on here. And then certainly because women go, well, why are you the only one speaking for us? The brides absolutely, or the other half of the couple should certainly be up there. But it's a great tradition that the groom has a chance to tell the story and to thank everyone. I think it's great.
100%. And I guess to speak on that more, what you said, I love when the couple gives their thank you and both people are there, when it's not just one person standing up speaking on their behalf. Granted, only one person can speak at a time, but to stand up there together in unison is just this lovely, lovely thing. But do you have other tips, Beth, for just delivering this great toast, whether you're the couple or the best man or a maid of honor or a dad, whatever it is? I feel like you probably have some good bits of nuggets to share with us.
Yes, absolutely. And these are the sorts of things that you often will realize after the fact. I wish I had done this. So obviously practice, I would not suggest winging it. So think of what you want to say, and practice it. You don't necessarily have to memorize it. It's not a Broadway show. You don't get extra points for memorizing it. No one's going to think that you love these people any less if you have an index card in your hand. But practice it. Say it out loud as many times as you can. Get the words comfortable coming out of your mouth, because not only will that help you deliver it better, it's also going to help you fine-tune the writing, because sometimes something that looks good on paper just doesn't sound natural coming out of your mouth. And the more you say it, the more natural it will sound coming out of your mouth. And then, so get yourself to the point where you have it mostly memorized. You're serious about it. If you can't memorize it all the way, no problem. If you're going to bring a card up with yourself or a piece of paper, this is a good trick. When you print out your speech, print it in a big font. So print it 14, 16, even 18. Because what bumps people is when they're giving a speech. So if you have to look, you may not ever have to look down. Look up as much as you can. But if you have to look down and find your place in the speech, you don't want it to be like tiny little type, because that's when you look down and go, oh, okay, where was I? It's just word salad on the paper. And that's when people stress out, though. It's because they have a little bit of flow. They look down and then they go, oh, I can't find it. I can't find it. Whoop, whoop, we're going down. And they just lose any momentum or any confidence that they have. So just nice big print. Doesn't matter if you're 25 or if you're 55. Have it in nice big print. Also, this is a great pause. See, you know what I didn't do? I didn't make it big enough. I didn't make it big enough. And then another important thing is make sure people can hear you. And there's a really good way to make sure everyone can hear you. Pick up the microphone and ask, can everybody hear me? And it sounds so obvious, but it will tank your speech, because you'll get up there, you'll go, hey, can I have everyone's attention? And then just start talking. And you'll think, boy, no one's laughing at the jokes. No one's really even paying any attention to me. And that's because they can't hear you. So make sure everyone can hear you clearly. If you have to shout, or if it's not loud enough, hold it closer to your face, see if someone can do something. But no one can hear it. It's the worst thing in the world when you do something and then you lose your confidence because you think, no one, wow, I thought people would cry here or laugh here. They're just sort of looking at their plate. If there's someone that you're talking about, point them out. If you say that the bride and the groom met at Nancy's dinner party, point to Nancy. I mean, politely, but point to Nancy. Let the people in the room know that's Nancy. Because if you don't, at 15 different tables, they're going to be saying, which one's Nancy? Is she the one? She's the one with the brown hair. No, she's the one with no, she's the blonde. Is she the redhead? I don't know. Is she over there? And if they're talking to each other, they're not listening to you. If they're not listening to you, they're not, it's not a dialogue anymore. And they're not going to laugh at your jokes. And you're going to think, boy, I thought that was really funny. And no one laughed. And then again, you lose the confidence that you have. So make sure. Also, make sure your last joke if you're going to have a joke in there, you're going to have something funny in there. Make sure it's your last one. It's your closer. So if you get a really big laugh, think about the episode of Seinfeld where George realizes that he's just going to walk out of the room after he's gotten the biggest laugh in his board meeting. Your final joke should be the funniest one you have, and the only thing that you should have after that is the toast. Okay. I wish you a lifetime of happiness. Good night.
Nailed it.
End on a high note.
That is so key. Whenever I'm sitting down with couples and we're trying to figure out the best order to put the speeches in, if they're having their maybe a dad is giving a toast, a maid of honor is giving a toast, and a best man, and they're saying, well, who do we put first? Who goes last? I always ask them, who do you think is the best speaker? Because we want to end this on the best note possible. We don't want to end it on someone who's maybe going to be a little bit more emotional in a way that's going to bring everybody down. Emotions aren't a bad thing, but in a way that's going to leave everybody feeling a little bit heavy, because usually these toasts are taking place either right before or in the middle of dinner, or at least your main courses of food. So you want to give people this positive overall experience. You can still share moments and, maybe bring a little bit of tears to the eyes, but you want to leave it on a really high note. So that's so important. So I always ask, is there somebody who's going to be a little bit more sappy? Let's put them either in the middle or in the beginning and end on someone who's just going to nail it out of the park. To me, that's the easiest way to try and figure out your best order, because it's this way it's just giving your guests the best experience possible too.
Absolutely. Set your speakers up for success.
Right.
Set everyone up for success. There may be a traditional order, but if you know that someone is going to just hit it out of the park, let them close it. Let the person that's super crazy nervous, offer them a chance to go first so they can get it over with. Don't make them sit there thinking, do I have to follow this? I have to follow this?
Or make them sit there all night knowing with that pit in the stomach, I still have to give my toast. And some people will opt, not to enjoy in any, to partake in any libations. They won't have any drinks until they give their toast, because they just want to make sure that they're not stumbling through it and they're, presenting with their best foot forward. So for some of them, if you wait too long to have them give their toast, they're just a nervous, anxious wreck by the time they get up there to do it. Whereas I like to give all of our couples, all of our groups of people with our wedding party, I give them heads up when they're going to be speaking so that they have an idea. So it's not all day they're just going, okay, wait, did they just announce me to give my toast? No. Okay. Was that my name? This is when you're going to do it, and it's going to be good. Bring your glass up with you. Don't forget to give a toast. All those things. And makes it a little bit more enjoyable for that person too, because if you're asking this person to give a toast at your wedding, they mean a great deal to you, obviously. So you want to give them an opportunity to put their best foot forward and to just have a really great experience on their end as well, because they're standing up there for you, but this is a life moment that they're on. I know when my sister got married, I was super young. I was 13, and for months, she asked me to be her maid of honor, but for months I was petrified out of my mind that I was going to have to stand up and give a toast. And I was 13 years old. I had no idea what I was doing. And it wasn't until my sister said, Danny, you don't have to give a toast if you don't want to. And I was like, oh, thank God. Because I would, first of all, at that age, I was dealing with so many emotions and Lord knows what else to even try and go up there and say something. But just the thought of as a kid going up there, I didn't have that confidence at that age. But she thought of me, and she knew that I loved her, and she knew that I was going to do everything I could as her maid of honor to make her day awesome. But that was not going to be one of those things. She knew I would have gone through that day having panic attacks at that age at the thought of it. So it's just about doing what's really great for everybody involved. And I love that so much.
One of the things that you said, Danielle, before was, and just a quick interjection here, is that this is obviously those people that are standing up there and they're talking about you and your lives, that they're special people, right? And my cousin Ryan and I, we promised each other when we were 11, I think, at my cousin Scott's wedding, that we were going to be best men in each other's weddings. And my cousin Ryan was never really a super emotional guy. And I kind of poked fun at him a little bit in my speech to him when he got married. But what I thought was really interesting is how seriously he took when he did the speech at our wedding, and he practiced, he wrote it down. And what I think is interesting is how people are still talking about that speech. I still think about that speech, and I wish he would have given me his speech. So maybe that's one of the other things is ask your best man or maid of honor if they have the speech written down, if you can keep it afterwards, if you can just have that piece of paper, maybe as a memento. I don't know if you're scrapbook people or not, but I did not get that. And there's many times where we didn't have video or anything. And part of me is thinking, it's nice that I just have this memory of it that's maybe better than it actually is. But that's just something I would highly encourage people to do is, hey, grab the speech if you can, if they'll allow you to be able to have it for a keepsake, because it's a special moment.
Yeah, that's a great idea. It's a great gift as well, if you want to sort of put it together or make a really nice version of it for someone.
I love that.
That makes sense. Beth, this is something that you do for a lot of people. And I think it's just so awesome. I didn't even realize that this was really an option. And not to sound ignorant about it, but I didn't. And I think if I didn't see it as an option, I think many other people didn't either. But do you have any tips for people who are trying to do it without the help of a professional?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and everything I said sort of goes without saying that it's to do it yourself. I mean, the biggest tip I would have is you can do this. You absolutely can do this. You can write something that you will love, that the people you're addressing are going to love. Be confident in yourself. Be confident in the reasons that they asked you to speak, and just approach it bit by bit by bit by bit. Even if you're really stressed about it, just keep making notes of things that you might want to say, because just that brainstorm, whether it's intense for an hour or whether you do it from the time they ask you and you've got 5 months to sort of slowly write things down, collect all that information, then start to put it together like a puzzle. If you have, ask friends to read it, ask someone that you respect or someone whose opinion you respect to read it, and let it slowly come into focus. Let it slowly shape itself. A 5-minute speech written at sort of 12-point type double space is maybe about 2 pages, not much more than that, maybe even a little bit less. So that's what you're aiming for. It's not a book. It's not a report. It's not a thesis. It's a very reasonable amount of stuff. You've got a lot of business that you take care of on either end, introducing yourself, recognizing people, thanking people. So you've got, especially if you're the bride or the groom, a lot of it's kind of written for you. You kind of know what you want to say. How you say it may be different. You may want to include a little humor when you're thanking. If you're not the host, whoever the hosts are, you're thanking all the hard work that your maid of honor, or thanking the maid of honor for the bachelorette party, and the bachelor thanking the best man without going into detail for the bachelor party. Thanking your guests for coming. It's always easy to throw a joke in for that. I mean, at our wedding, we got married in late November in California, and we lucked out, and it was an 80-degree day. Well, a good handful of our guests were from England, because that's where my wife is from. And, we thanked them for coming pretty much last minute, for them coming here, and sort of realized halfway through what I was saying that they were all sitting in the sun. They were all sunburned. And that really, yes, thanking them. So there was a nice amount of humor. Like, look how selfless you are. You were willing to come from London, with 40 degrees and raining sideways in November, all the way here just to show your love, just because you like us so much. What heroes you are. But yeah, just relax and be yourself. Everyone's there because they like you.
That's awesome. I think in talking through all this stuff, what you said about printing out a toast, not necessarily feeling like you need to memorize it all, but printing it out in this nice large font is awesome. I've also seen people go up there with their phones, which I don't know what it is. What was that, Dan?
Blech.
I know.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
I'm not either. And I get it because it's convenient. You've probably got it on you, but I just feel like the slightest notification that pops up, your phone turns off, you got to turn it back on, you have to unlock it. All of those things are just these little distractions that are going to potentially take you out of that moment. And I get it. But I would challenge you, if you are going to write something out and have something on your person, to think about what's in your hand, because I think there's this very odd view of seeing a person standing in front of a microphone giving this beautiful toast, but also looking down at this phone, something that is everybody's distraction in their life. So it's just a thing to think about. And speaking of your hands, think about, so you have your speech in your hand. Are you holding a microphone? Are you holding the glass that you're toasting with? What all are you holding? Because at the end of the day, you have 2 hands. So you can only juggle and balance so much. So there is nothing wrong if you are, say, going up to a band either asking one of the band members to hold your drink or putting your drink down at a table nearby so that at the end you can still cheers to the couple or cheers to whoever you're cheersing to. But just think about those things in advance if you can. I'm an overthinker, so these are the only things that I think about in my life. But it's all those little moments and all those little details that will make you feel that much comfortable. Because if you're walking up there with a drink in hand and your toast in your hand, and then the band member hands you a microphone, you're suddenly going, I don't know what to do.
What do I do?
Exactly. And it's if anything that I'm taking away from what Beth is saying, it's about this confidence and just having a moment where people are listening to you, sharing your thoughts, and just sending out this like good positive vibes into the world. And we just like to set you up for success. Never mind, I quit. Failed at that. Never mind.
No, that's terrific advice. And also, the band is great. And, have a stool if you need to put something down. Yes. They'll often have a stool. There'll be a chair. There'll be something. But you'll have plenty of time to look at the situation, look up at wherever you are. You might stay right where you are. You might be in your place. You might go somewhere. You might go on stage. But wherever you are, think it through. You have the time. It's not the day of. You will have the time, and none of the requests that you'll make are going to overwhelm the waiter or the band leader or anybody that works there. A busboy can get you a stool or a chair. They're small requests, so take your time, think it through. That's really great advice, because the last thing you want to do is stress for it for 3 months, put a lot of time and effort into it, pay me to help you with it, and then get up there and have to juggle, and have to, have your speech in your armpit or something while you're trying to hold a gin and a microphone at the same time without electrocuting yourself. Yes.
Right.
You actually brought up something about like depending on where you're going to stand, and sometimes you get thrown all over the place. You're up at a band, you're standing by the couple, you're facing the couple, you're facing everybody else. Your back is to the couple. One of the things visually that I really like to see is the speech giver standing next to the couple, if that's possible. So that way you can both like interact with them on a very personal level. You can touch them, put your hand on their back or whatever, and also speak to the audience. And then like secondary, if I'm just purely talking about something visual, is actually standing out, looking towards them, because it depends on the setup of the room or something. But those are my two favorites: is maybe standing in the middle of the dance floor, looking out at everybody, or looking at the couple. Is there any specific way that you like to see that, or where you like to be when you're giving a toast, or facing? You know what I mean? Like I guess it's. The question I have is like you're giving the toast about the couple to everybody else. I don't know.
It is a very natural question that comes up: is where do I stand? Who do I look at?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, where you stand, I think, is more up to where the practicalities of the room and would be your area of expertise, Danielle, of how you can sort of arrange people. And maybe that's something that you're thinking of in terms of how you're setting up the seating, or, and it's, okay, this is how we're setting it up. And then naturally, okay, so then this would probably be where someone would, they would go. And then for who you look at the person you're talking about. This is like anything else. It sounds like it's a monologue, but really it's a dialogue. So even if people aren't speaking, their attention is the other half of the conversation. So if you're talking about the bride and the groom, they're probably sitting together. So that's easy to make eye contact with them. But look at them. I mean, make sure that you occasionally sort of swing around the room and look around the room. But mainly you're talking to them. This is you. That's why they've brought you here. So try not to have your head buried in whatever it is that don't read your speech. Have anything that you write down for yourself. That's your safety net. But, safety net means try not to use it unless you absolutely need it. So look up, talk to them, because that's what's going to give you the best moment. That's what's going to give you, you're going to well up. They're going to well up. I mean, you're really going to see the reaction to what you're saying. I mean, it's in a lot of ways, it's a love note. You're telling someone that you love them and that you appreciate them. If you were doing that to your significant other, over a meal, you wouldn't do it while looking at the menu. You know,
Right.
do it while playing with the silverware or looking around the room to see when the appetizer's coming. You wouldn't do it looking at your glass. So try it. It can feel scary if you're not used to public speaking or comfortable speaking in public, but that also can really be your anchor. So it can be the most frightening thing, but it can also make you forget about all those other people that are around you in a good way. Focus on them. And if you talk about the bride and groom's parents, or because you're thanking them for hosting, look at them. That's how people know. That's a way of showing that you're sincere. Look at them. If you're thanking your own parents, if you're the bride and groom and you're thanking your own parents, how often do you get a chance to do that? To stand up and publicly thank your parents for everything they've done for you, let alone the amount of money that they probably spent on this event. But to really thank them, look at them, and look at their reaction. Savor that moment. It's not one that you get too often.
That's beautiful.
Oh, I love that so much. Well, I guess the last question is, what else is there? Is there any final thoughts that you have, or any final little tidbits that you'd like to share?
Well, don't be afraid to ask for help. If you're preparing a speech, it's a once in a lifetime or a toast. No matter who you are in the ceremony, it's probably a once or at least a very few times in a lifetime event. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And help can be asking a friend to listen to your speech, asking a friend to read your speech, hiring somebody like me to give you feedback, to help you, to write it for you, and then you personalize it more. Just don't be afraid to ask for help. I write all kinds of speeches. I've written bunches of eulogies for people because it's another kind of a once in a life, well, no pun intended, but a once in a lifetime event. But someone who is you're trying to honor someone that's very, very close to you. And sometimes you need a little perspective. Sometimes those outside eyes can really help you put together your thoughts in a way that you might just be a little bit too close to. You wouldn't do your taxes yourself. I mean, you could, but if you go to someone who does them day in and day out, they can do it a lot faster, and they can see things in it that you can't necessarily see. So don't be afraid to ask for help. You're not in a bubble. And especially if it's the bride and the groom speech, ask one another, or ask a best friend so that you can surprise the person that you're speaking about. Perfect.
Where should we tell everybody to connect with you, or how should they connect with you?
I've got a website. It's my name's Beth Sherman, and it's the very cleverly named BethSherman.com.
Perfect. Nailed it. Thanks for being on today, Beth. That was awesome.
My pleasure. Nice to talk to you. Thanks for having me.
Woo.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to another episode of the Put a Ring on It podcast. We love you.
And if you haven't yet, please take a minute to rate, review, and subscribe in iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. This helps us out so much, you guys.
You can find the show notes for today's episode at putaringonitpodcast.com. Oh, and don't forget, connect with us on all of the socials.
Yep, I am at DPNAK, DPNAK, on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and Pinterest.
And I'm at Daniel Moyer Photo on Instagram and Daniel Moyer Photography on Facebook and Pinterest.
And remember, you can always send us your questions on our website or on the Put a Ring on It podcast Facebook page. We really do our best to answer every single one we get, and we might even include yours in an upcoming episode.